Lyrebirds. Albert Cutts was a tree fella, a fella who cuts down trees. People will always need wood for their houses, he told the possums, but the possums always needed apples for their mouths and only ever really concentrated when food was involved. In any case, they lived in trees and couldn't see the sense in cutting them down, so they just glared at Albert, even though the apples were off his tree. Albert didn't cut down trees for nothing. That was his job. No one knew the bush as well or loved it more deeply. He lived in a hut beside a stream deep in a forest. He built the hut with planks split from forest timber, the roof from bark peeled off logs. And so our story begins. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm a teacher librarian in Canberra, and today I'm going to be talking about this book, Fog of Dogs by Bruce Pascoe. I don't know where to start. Wow. I started reading this morning and I couldn't put it down. It's not very thick, so it doesn't take that long to read. But it just made me feel so much at home. So much of our Australian history and our connection to the land is tied up in this book. Okay, so it's about Albert, who is a tree fella. He lives in the bush with his dog, Brim. And it's about his life living in the bush. Now, there's no set date on this, but I imagine it's not set today, just because we have a number of bush folk living out in the bush, living off the land, and felling trees with an axe. He could have a chainsaw, but he's got an axe, and he splits the wood by hand. So I'm thinking maybe the 50s, but maybe it does happen today, and I'm just not familiar with it. There's a lot of knowledge, I guess, tied up in this book, like experience for me helped me really understand a lot that was going on. But I think for anyone, if you want to know what life is like in the bush, then this is a fantastic book to read. It is about Albert living in the bush, and he has a dog, and he loves his dog. And one day when he's out in the bush, he hears something going on, and he goes and he finds a bird attacking a young fox and discovers all these little tiny foxes living alone. Mum's disappeared somewhere. So he takes them in and gets them to to suckle off his dog, who's just had pups, and he raises these foxes. And it's about how some of these foxes go off and be wild, and then the one fox stays behind, and that is Fog of the title. And it's just this beautifully slow-moving, descriptive story of the bush and how Albert connects with these animals. And then it's also the story of Maria. Maria is a young girl living in a town. She has cancer. She is essentially dying, and the story eventually brings these two together, Maria and Albert, and through a friend called Crazy Dave. And it's just a lovely, lovely story to read. If you really want to read something really Australian and get to the heart of who we are as Australians, then this is the book to read. Grab Fog of Dogs by Bruce Pascoe.